Hello, this SOLIDWORKS video will cover assemblies. Assembly is a 3D arrangement of parts or other assemblies. So it's sort of like an InDesign file that points to multiple images. It's like a 3D file that points to multiple 3D files. Up until this point, we've mainly been working in part files. Part files are handy for designing. So for example, with this handle, we have a front and a back. And if the front changes, we want the back to match, so we want them to change together. Now, if you start to move towards production or complex designs with multiple parts, you might have a larger team with engineers. So it would make sense then to split the file up into separate parts and have it come together in assembly so that different team members can work on it and also can start getting ready for production, so part numbers can be assigned to it. That helps for quality assessment and tracking. So an assembly is just basically a more complex way to approach things. Now that said, it can also be used for design, which is what we will use it for here. So for example, with our basic sandwich griddle here, you may have a design where you want to look at different handles on this griddle, or you might want to look at different knobs with it, or vice versa. You might want to take the same handle and put it on different bodies. So that's how we're going to use it in this instance. So I'm going to go ahead and click File New, and in the Advanced tab I'm going to select my assembly template. And it looks very similar to a part file. There's nothing different. It automatically loads this property manager of begin assembly, and what it's showing me here are all the open files I have, and this is what I can drop into my window here. If you don't see the file you want to load, of course you can always browse and navigate to that part file there. So I'm going to go ahead and start by loading the sandwich griddle. I'll select this and just click the green checkbox. And what this does by just clicking that green checkbox is it just automatically aligns all the planes in the files. So the top plane in the part file will be aligned with the top plane in the assembly file. And this part is sort of now our starting point, and the part that will define everything else added to this. So of course the point is to add other files. So to add more, I can go to Insert, Component, and Existing Part in Assembly. Now of course again it shows all the open ones. If not, you can browse as mentioned. I'm going to click this pin here. This keeps the property dialog open until I have placed everything I need. So I can click on the handle and click in the window and it will drop it in place. A knob, and drop that in place, as well as, let's see, some griddles here. And of course we want two for a top and a bottom. Check that box. So you'll notice again that this can't move, but if I drag on any of these other components, they will move around. So really what you want to do is sort of pin these down and have them located in the location you want them. And the way we do that is with a feature called mates. And it's sort of as described, it just kind of mates objects together. So we can start with the handle here. There's different ways to mate objects. So I can select, you can mate faces. So I can select this face here. Actually, this might be more clear by launching the property dialog first. So I'm going to click on the mate tool. And so here's what it's asking me is, what do you want to mate? And some of these may look familiar, this language, coincident, parallel, tangent. These are all similar relationships from sketches, where you might have a line tangent to an arc, for example. The mates are similar. It's like applying relationships to the solid bodies. So here I'm going to select this flat face on the back of the handle, and you can see it loads here. And I can select the front face on the griddle, and you can see it just kind of snaps that handle forward. And now it's located on this front face. Let me just exit out of this for now and just show you what that means. So from a top view, if I try and drag this forward, it doesn't want to move forward because the two faces are somewhat glued together. However, I can still drag it left and right. And if I take a front view, you can see I can still drag it up and down. So of course we want to change that. Other ways to add mates, you can also mate planes together. So again, here it's asking me what mates I want. I can expand the trees on the right here. So maybe I want to match the right plane to the right plane of the handle so that we have them centered on each other, as objects typically are, symmetric and centered. But here maybe I want to, you can also mate edges. So I can select, for example, this edge on this handle and this edge here. And now I have the handle right at the very top, right on that fillet. And now we have it in place. Again, if I just check out of the mate properties, I can drag this handle around now, or try to rather, and it's pinned down. The next thing I might want to drop in place would be this knob. Now, typically, you know, depending on how complex your setup is, if you plan ahead, I could, for example, open up this part and plan on the front face here for a place where this knob might go. I believe with the bezel, it's like 1.5 inches large. So you can see this is maybe a bit big. We can change this in a minute here. But this just gives me a rough idea of where the knob will be placed. This will be sort of a mounting point for the stem of the knob. So I'm going to change this outer circle to be for construction. And let's see, maybe I want to just visually place this more towards the edge here. And what I'm going to do is simply just do an extruded cut into this body here. And I'll just hit save so that it remembers that. And now when I go back to my assembly, it should update. It's asking me, it's saying, hey, we noticed the part changed. Is that okay? And I'm just saying yes. If you ever need to rebuild something, there is this stoplight icon up here. This is sort of like a refresh. So you can remember that. So now that we have like a point here to attach the knob to, I can again load the mate setting. And now I can select the stem and this mating points. And you can see that SolidWorks kind of makes an assumption of concentric. Now concentric is it is indeed what we intended to do. And it's useful because it defines left and right and up and down. You can see, however, that it's backwards, which is not intended. So you can always go back and edit mates. And had I noticed that sooner, we could have done it before clicking check. But you have a list of mates at the bottom here, but also within each part. So if I expand the knob here, you can see there's a mate folder. And I can right click on this and say edit feature. And anytime it's mated backwards, there's just this alignment tab here that you can click to flip it. So it's possible like the handle could have been backwards. So just be aware that those tabs exist in order to flip that. But yeah, the nice thing about also the concentric alignment is it's good for kind of setting up renders. You can have sort of an in-use view with the knob slightly turned. Now, of course, it is sliding back and forth, so we want to fix that. So I'm simply just going to select the back face of the bezel, click on the mate command, and you can see when you do that, it automatically loads that face that you have selected in there. And then just check that box. And now we have the knob where we want it. Of course, you can see it's a bit lower, so we'll make some design adjustments in a minute here. Next up, we want to position the griddles, the hot plates. So again, I'm going to load the mate command and select this face and select the face under here. And you can see that you know, it's facing the wrong direction. So this is again a good opportunity to remember this mate alignment tool and click this to flip it. You can see though that it also kind of, now it's a little bit crooked. We can check that check mark. You'll notice that the mate command stays open. It's because this is pinned, and I believe that does it by default. There's a chance it did it because I pinned it earlier. But it's a useful way to just keep adding mates. So again, I want to center the griddle the same way that the handle was centered. So I'm going to select the right plane in the overall part file. I'm going to find this griddle file and expand it. And again, find the right plane here. And you can see it shifts over. And for the last mate, I'm going to select the edge of the griddle and this face edge here, and then it will sort of slide into position. And then I just can repeat this with the bottom one as well. Now, you can see that it was kind of hard to like peek in there. If you're ever trying to create some mates and it's like a part you can't see, remember that you can always open up the part file in the tree here. And if this is confusing, like you can always exit out of this mate story. I hope that didn't undo it. Yeah, it didn't. That's good. basically you can then expand the tree here. So let's say that this is, this is all in the way. Maybe I don't want to see it. I can select this griddle and click the eyeball to hide it. And here in this sandwich press, I can hide this top body so that it's sort of not in the way. And now when I go to my mate settings, it's easier to select things. So just remember that that hide body command is in there. And again, there's different ways to mate. I could always, mate this edge. If I don't want to bother looking for the planes, I can always mate this edge to this face. So it's whatever's convenient for what you're working on. It's kind of a preferential thing, a workflow thing. And then of course, once everything's in place, I can then come back here and click on these eyeball icons to show the file. So that's mating. There is another way to go about this. So if I want to let me just suppress this file. You can pattern components. So for example, and I believe it's in here. Yep, all the way at the bottom, mirror components. So for example, I could have placed in one griddle, and I could load this here and say mirror component. And the mirror plane here, since this is centered, it's on the top plane. And the components to mirror would be, whoops, not the sandwich press, but the griddle. And I can just check this box, and here you can see it added another griddle at the bottom. So that's another way to do things. Let's say you had a design, maybe you have the deluxe sandwich cooker, and you have multiple knobs. You can do the same thing, linear component pattern. Here the direction, you can pick an edge, such as this. Components to pattern, I can select the knob, and you just want to set the number of knobs you then want. Click this to flip the direction. So again, super deluxe sandwich press, all the settings. And again, this is where designing with an assembly makes sense, because it's not like I have to build this same part over and over again. It's a way to place it, right? Or if I wanted to look at what a different design looked like, I could go and load one of these earlier designs in here and see, okay, what does it look like with this kind of square look? What does it look like with this oval look? So that's how you might design with in an assembly. So you may notice that the knob placement's a bit silly. So yeah, you may want to make some changes. Like I did before to make this mating point for the knob, I went into the part file, opened it up, and made the adjustment. But you can also adjust it within the assembly itself. The way you do that is you just right-click on the part file, and you look for this icon, Edit Part. It's actually asking me to save the assembly first, so I'm just going to say Save, and give it a name. It saves, whenever the assembly saves, it saves all the components within it. So let me exit out of this just to make this clear. So again, to edit the part, it needs to be saved. I always forget to save. That's not a good habit to have. But I'm going to right-click on this part file, click on the Edit Part, and now I am in the Edit Part mode. I know that because the tree is blue. I see this icon here with the pencil. And what I can do is now I can edit this so that there is more distance at the bottom here. So I'm actually going to drag my building bar up to before I add the fillets. And basically I just want to add a little bit more distance here. I can do that with an extrude. I think since that's the command we're most familiar with, I'm going to stick to that. So what I'll do is I'll select this face. I'll create a sketch on it by clicking Alt-S. I'll convert entities on the face, and it will just take all the outside edges. And you'll notice now that I'm in the Edit Part mode, we have some new tabs here. Pay attention. I'll call attention back to this when we exit. All these tabs will disappear, which is a good thing because it is possible to add feature commands in an assembly, but that is not good to do. It's confusing and it leads to file errors. So I'll emphasize that after this. So you can see here I just added an extrude. It appears in the tree, and now the knob is completely captured. If I drag this down, the fillet should rebuild. No, they didn't. I can see an error here. It lost this bottom edge. So I simply want to right-click on this, say Edit Feature. Here we can see the dotted red line where it used to be. It's telling me it's missing. I can just reselect these edges and then check this box. And now I drag my build bar all the way down and exit out. The reason you would want to edit within the assembly is to be able to see things like the size of the knob or the size of the part you're trying to align it to. So for example, like maybe I want to align this handle all the way to the edge here. You know, I could, again, once I'm in the assembly, edit this to be wider, or I can edit it outside of it. It's two different options to the same end result. As I mentioned, I wanted to call attention. You can see now at the top, the feature tab is now missing. Again, that's a good thing. The only features you want in here are assembly features. If I start seeing fillets or extrudes in this tree, that is not good file practice. It leads to errors, and so points will be lost on the project. So there you have it. That's assemblies.